I thought I knew every sound my grandson made, especially his calm voice. But one quiet afternoon taught me that calm can YPP seconds be a curtain, and behind it can me for this memory that stayed with me for years. I've replayed that 0 to 3,434 seconds day in my mind more times than I can count. Usually when the house is quiet, 0 to 3,939 seconds and the late afternoon light settles into the corners like it's looking for somewhere to rest. I was in my early 50s then, old enough to think I understood. 0 to 4,848 seconds people, young enough to still be surprised by them, especially by him. My grandson had always spoken softly, not 0 to 5,757 seconds she not unsure, just calm. The kind of calm that makes you lean in a little closer because you don't want to miss 1:51 minute 5 seconds anything. That afternoon, he sat across from me at the small kitchen table, the one with a nick on the edge from years 1 to 121 minute 12 seconds ago when I dropped a mixing bowl. The smell of coffee lingered between us, a minute 18 seconds though neither of us had touched a cup in a while. He was visiting for a few days, nothing unusual. His parents 1 to 261 minute 26 seconds trusted me and I trusted him. There was an easy rhythm to our time together, built over years of shared breakfasts, 1 to 341 minute 34 seconds quick car rides, and conversations that didn't need to go anywhere in particular. Or so I thought. Outside the AI minute, 8 seconds wind moved through the trees in slow waves. Inside everything felt held, like the house itself was listening. He 1 to 511 minute 51 seconds looked at me, and spoke the way he always did, steady and respectful. But there was something else there. A pause before 1 to 591 minute 59 seconds words, a careful choice in how he placed them. I noticed my hands had gone still on the table. He asked me if I APC minutes why Conceiver felt like people only heard the surface of what I was saying. It caught me off guard. I laughed at first 2 to 162 minutes 16 seconds lightly, the way we do when something lands closer to the heart than expected. 2 to 212 minutes, 21 seconds, then I saw his eyes. Not anxious, not dramatic, just honest. 2 to 282 minutes, 28 seconds. What followed wasn't loud or sudden. It unfolded slowly, like a memory you didn't realize you'd been carrying. He 2 to 372 minutes, 37 seconds shared something important, something he clearly thought about for a long time. 2 to 412 minutes 41 seconds. It wasn't about breaking rules or crossing lines. It was about trust, about choosing me because he felt safe. 2 to 492 minutes 49 seconds best. He believed I would listen without trying to fix him or change the meaning of his words. As he spoke, I 2 to 572 minutes 57 seconds felt a shift inside myself. A recognition that my role wasn't just to guide or protect, but to witness, to sit 353 minutes, 5 seconds with him in that moment, and allow the weight of what he was saying to be real. 3 to 103 minutes, 10 seconds. His calm voice hadn't been hiding anything out of fear. It had been holding something precious, waiting for 3 to 173 minutes, 17 seconds the right space to set it down. When he finished, the room felt different, not 3 to 233 minutes, 23 seconds heavier deeper. I realized then that connection doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives quietly. 3 to 323 minutes, 32 seconds asks permission, and changes you forever if you say yes. That evening stayed with me long after he went to his room. I 3 to 413 minutes, 41 seconds stood at the sink, rinsing a mug that didn't really need rinsing, watching the water spiral down the drain. His words echoed, not because they were shocking, 3 to 513 minutes, 51 seconds, but because they were careful. He hadn't come to me with noise or confusion. He came with clarity, and that made me take 3 to 593 minutes, 59 seconds him seriously in a way I hadn't expected. 4 to 24 minutes, 2 seconds. I remember thinking about how often older folks like me assume we've already learned the biggest lessons life has to offer. We start believing our role is to whip pay minutes, 8 seconds explain, to correct, to pass things down neatly tied, with advice. But that night reminded me that listening is still work. 4 to 204 minutes, 20 seconds and still a gift. After dinner, we sat in the living room. The lamp by the window cast a warm circle of light. 4 to 294 minutes, 29 seconds leaving the rest of the room in gentle shadow. 4 to 324 minutes, 32 seconds, the television was off. That alone felt unusual these days. He sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded, posture. 4 to 414 minutes, 41 seconds relaxed, but attentive. I could tell he was waiting, not nervously, just openly. 4 to 474 minutes, 47 seconds waiting to see if I would meet him where he stood. I told him a story from my own life, something I hadn't shared with. 4 to 554 minutes, 55 seconds many people. About a time when I felt unseen, when my own calm had been mistaken for certainty. As I spoke, 5:35 minutes, 5 seconds realized I wasn't just telling him a story. I was offering him proof. Proof that feeling deeply and speaking quietly could coexist. 5 to 135 minutes, 13 seconds, proof that respect runs both ways. He listened the same way he spoke fully. 5 to 205 minutes, 20 seconds, no interruptions, no glances at his phone, just presence. It struck me then how rare that kind of attention is, and 5 to 295 minutes, 29 seconds show powerful. The air between us felt steady, almost warm, like a bridge being built plank by plank. At one point, he 5 to 385 minutes, 38 seconds smiled. Just a small one, and said he was relieved. 5 to 435 minutes, 43 seconds not because he had been afraid of my reaction, but because he hoped I'd understand the importance of what he shared. That mattered to him, and it mattered to me that it mattered to him. 5 to 555 minutes, 55 seconds later, as the house settled into nighttime sounds, I lay awake thinking about how roles can shift without warning. Not in a way that breaks 6:46 minutes, 4 seconds boundaries, but in a way that deepens them. I was still his grandmother. He was still my grandson. But within that 6 to 146 minutes, 14 seconds there was room for honesty that didn't feel forced or fragile. 6 to 186 minutes, 18 seconds I understood then that growth doesn't always come from new experiences. 6 to 236 minutes, 23 seconds. Sometimes it comes from seeing familiar people with clearer eyes. 6 to 276 minutes, 27 seconds. That calm voice hadn't just carried truth. It had invited me into it, and I was grateful I had stepped forward. 6 to 356 minutes, 35 seconds instead of turning away. The next morning arrived quietly, the way mornings do when something important has. 6 to 416 minutes, 41 seconds already happened. Sunlight slipped through the curtains and landed on the floor in long pale strips. I was up. 6 to 496 minutes, 49 seconds sincerely, moving slowly, thinking carefully, not because I felt worried, but because I wanted to be intentional. 6 to 576 minutes, 57 seconds. Whatever had opened between us deserved that. 7 to 17 minutes, 1 second. When he came into the kitchen, he greeted me like always, polite, warm, unassuming. Why PP minutes? Why seconds? He poured himself cereal and sat at the table, humming softly under his breath. If someone had walked in right then, 7 to 167 minutes, 16 seconds, they would have seen nothing unusual at all. And yet I felt the difference. It was like knowing a room has an extra window, even if the blinds are closed. 7 to 267 minutes, 26 seconds. We talked about ordinary things, the weather, a repair that needed doing on the porch, a neighbor I hadn't seen in a 7 to 357 minutes, 35 seconds while. But beneath the small talk was an ease I hadn't noticed before. There was no tension in the silence. No need to 7 to 447 minutes, 44 seconds fill it. That alone told me something had shifted in a good way. Later, we took a walk down the old street behind 7 to 527 minutes, 52 seconds me house. The one with cracked sidewalks and tall maples that has seen more years than either of us. He walked beside me 8 to 008 minutes matching my pace without being asked. 8 to 38 minutes, 3 seconds, the small gesture stayed with me. It spoke of awareness of consideration, traits you hope younger people carry. 8 to 128 minutes, 12 seconds but don't always get to see so clearly. 8 to 158 minutes, 15 seconds at one point, he asked me how I learned to trust my instincts. The question surprised me, not because it was deep, 8 to 248 minutes, 24 seconds, but because it was sincere. I told him the truth, that I didn't always trust them, that I learned through mistakes. 8 to 328 minutes, 32 seconds throughout moments when I ignored that quiet inner voice because it wasn't loud enough to compete with expectations. 8 to 408 minutes, 40 seconds he nodded, absorbing that, and said something simple in return. That sometimes his calm wasn't certainty, but 8 to 488 minutes, 48 seconds focus. That speaking softly helped him hear himself better. Hearing that felt like being handed a key to understanding. 8 to 568 minutes, 56 seconds more fully. As we walked back, I realized this wasn't about one conversation or one day. It was about 9:59 minutes, 5 seconds recognizing growth in real time in someone you've known since they were small enough to fit in your arms. That recognition brought a strange mix of pride and humility. 9 to 169 minutes, 16 seconds, that afternoon, as he sat reading by the window, I watched him for a moment and felt a quiet sense of peace. 9 to 249 minutes, 24 seconds, not because everything was resolved, but because something real had been honored. 9 to 299 minutes, 29 seconds in, I knew that whatever came next, we would meet it with the same steady respect that had carried us this far. By the time his visit was coming to an end, 9 to 389 minutes, 38 seconds, I felt changed in a way that didn't demand explanation. 9 to 429 minutes, 42 seconds, it was the kind of change that settles into you quietly, like learning a new route home and wondering how you ever took the old one. On his last evening, 9 to 529 minutes, 52 seconds sat on the back porch as the sky faded from blue to that soft gray that feels like a held breath. The crickets minutes, a second had started up, and the air carried the smell of cut grass from somewhere down the block. He leaned back in the chair. Minutes, seconds looking out rather than at me, and I understood that. Sometimes connection doesn't require eye contact, just share space, share time. He thanked me then, 10 to 2110 minutes, 21 seconds not with a big speech, just a few words spoken the way he always spoke, calm and sincere. 10 to 2810 minutes, 28 seconds, he said it meant a lot to be heard without being questioned or rushed. I told him the truth in return, that at 10 to 3510 minutes, 35 seconds mean more than he knew to be trusted in that way, that it reminded me why listening matters at every age. As I 10 to 4310 minutes, 43 seconds watched him gather his things later, I thought about how family stories often get told in broad strokes. 10 to 5010 minutes, 50 seconds holidays, traditions, milestones. 10 to 5410 minutes, 54 seconds, but the moments that shape us most don't always fit neatly into those categories. 10 to 5910 minutes, 59 seconds. Sometimes they happen at a kitchen table or during a quiet walk or in the space between words. When he hugged me APA minutes, seconds could be, it was the same familiar embrace. It had always been warm, respectful, AEA minutes, 14 seconds grounded. And yet I felt the weight of everything unspoken, not as a burden, APA minutes, Y seconds, but as a bond. One built on mutual respect and understanding, not assumption. 11 to 2,711 minutes, 27 seconds after he left, the house felt larger. 11 to 3,011 minutes, 30 seconds net emptier, just quieter in a different way. I sat in my chair by the window and thought about how easy it is to 11 to 3,711 minutes, 37 seconds underestimate calm people. To assume we already know what they carry because they don't demand attention. That day taught me otherwise. 11 to 4,711 minutes, 47 seconds. I've carried that lesson with me ever since in conversations with friends. 11 to 5,211 minutes, 52 seconds with neighbors, with anyone who speaks softly but means deeply. My grandson's calm voice didn't hide something 12 minutes important out of fear. It protected it until the moment felt right. And I'm grateful I was ready to listen because growth doesn't always announce itself. 12 to 1,212 minutes, 12 seconds. Sometimes it arrives gently, asks for your patience, and leaves you wiser than you were the day